You're listening to Estrogen Dropouts.
Hey, welcome back to Estrogen Dropouts. I'm one of your hosts, Elizabeth.
And I'm your other host, Erin. Today's topic is one that actually has been alluded to in several podcast episodes that we've done, but we're going to really tackle it. We actually had a friend who was giving us some feedback about the podcast, and she specifically asked us to talk about this. And we're talking about the need that women feel to seek approval and permission from others, myself included, Elizabeth included.
Yeah, and this oftentimes we are unaware of this. And so it really takes us to recognize it. But it comes up in ways whenever we shrink ourselves, when we don't stand up for ourselves with opinions, whether it be something large, like I don't care where we go for dinner. Now, if you really don't care, that's fine. But if it's a pattern and you never speak up and say where you want to go for dinner, or if political conversations come up, and look, I don't like to debate politics to save my life. I prefer to pass on that. But it's like if I never say anything and if I stay mute, then every time you do that and you don't show up as who you are, one, you're not growing real connections with people because people aren't really learning who you are, and you're not giving them a chance to honor that in you. But more importantly, you're not honoring it in yourself, and you're shrinking yourself. And what happens is oftentimes women will wake up in midlife and they'll be like, I don't know who I am. I don't know myself anymore, because they've been shrinking themselves to be agreeable or to be likable for years, and they have completely lost their sense of who they are.
I agree 100%. And I think the overwhelming theme of that is that it's the societal and cultural influences that we have from kids. So we are raised in a man's world. Men have typically always held the positions of power and authority, and they've dictated what women, can and cannot do. Case in point, that women couldn't have a credit card until 1978. So we didn't even have like buying power or purchasing power. And then the traditional gender roles, right? We've been socialized that women do this and men do this. And
this isn't even man bashing, because I know you're not. I'm just clarifying, like, yes, that is the patriarchy and that is the way our society has, it moves. But really, women have become our own biggest like critics. We're doing it to each other.
Mhm. For sure. Well, and I was going to say for gender roles, I used to be in a play group years ago when I was a stay-at-home mom. And lots of the moms, we met once a week for the kids to all play together. Once they started school, we'd meet after school. It was fun. We all grew up together, all the kids. But once a month, we would do a girls' night out. And it used to really just set me back on my heels when some of the women would say, oh, let me see if, David can babysit. And I was like, babysit? Like, totally understand saying, let me see if John is in town that week, if he's not traveling. And some of these women worked, they were from home or they worked part-time. And I used to always think like, this is just so interesting
It's
to me.
bizarre.
I need to see if he can babysit. I'm like, he's a father. And that's a kind of like a asking for permission. Some women have to ask for permission to do things to their husbands. But I think your point is that women are doing it to each other more even maybe than men.
We're putting that expectation out. Like that's the standard. That's the feminine way or the proper way to move throughout the world as a female or as a woman, is to be agreeable, gracious, to
Right.
let everything roll off our back, to not stir the pot.
Yes. It's something that I've done because I have found myself being very accommodating. And we've talked
Oh, I
about.
like that word, accommodating. That's it. We're raised to be accommodating.
Yes. And I've noticed that sometimes when I've gotten kind of a little bit like of a burr up my butt about it, where I'm like, I am not going to be accommodating, is, how if you're walking on a sidewalk, or let's just say you're walking and there's a man coming towards you and you're the first to kind of like move out of the way, and you'll be like, oh, pardon me, or like make yourself small. And every now and then I get this like, I am
Like
going
he
to
should
you
move.
and then I'm like, I refuse to move. But I mean, part of it is because usually men typically their stature is bigger than women. Like we don't want to get bowled over by some 6'4", 250-pound man when we're like 150 pounds.
Also, they aren't raised that they have to be agreeable or polite
Or make
or
themselves small.
yes, that's a better way because then that's yeah. So I went on a women's retreat to Teo, and in that retreat, there were men and women sitting around this circle, and we were doing some self growth. And the speaker said, "I just want to state this for the record that you all are adults. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you are hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're having an emotional moment and you want to remove yourself, if you need to call someone on the phone, you're an adult. You do not need to raise your hand. You do not need to seek permission. Just get up and go do it." And I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. But I was thinking, if my husband was there, he wouldn't have needed to hear that. If he needed to go to the bathroom, he would have got up and just gone to the bathroom. I mean, he would have done so discreetly, but he would have just gone. Me, I would have sat there and held it until there was an official break without being given that permission. And then when on that same retreat, we went down to the pyramids to walk around, and she gave us this meditation to think on while we're walking around the pyramids. And a lot of the local villagers were there selling little trinkets and stuff. And so they kept coming up to us and saying like, oh, showing us what they have. And we were like, no, thank you. No gracias, no gracias. Like we kept like doing, and she just walked up to my girlfriend and I, and she's like, stop responding to them. I've been coming here since 1994. They know what my group is doing. You are on a meditative walk. You don't need to sit here and say no thank you to everyone that comes up to you. They are used to this. They're going to be fine. You stay on your task, which is to heal. We're doing like an emotional healing thing. So she's like, it's fine. You're not rude. And I really needed that permission. And that was kind of alarming to me that I needed that permission at 47 years old or however old I was at the time. But it's also eye opening in how many other areas of our lives do we need permission?
Yeah. So one thing about that, giving permission, when Mary and I host retreats, which Mary is my holistic health business partner and conscious business partner, and we host retreats for women, we always say at the very beginning is attend to your own personal needs, because many times women we don't want to like,
Be disruptive.
right. So we want to, again, we want to be accommodating. So we feel like, oh, if I get up and just exit, that I'm disrupting the flow of the group, when it's not. No, everybody's like, oh, like let her do her thing. But we have that tendency to want to be given permission. But think about how we have been socialized from childhood. When you went to school, which I understand why, because you have to maintain order in a classroom, but you had to ask for permission, right, to go to the bathroom. So
Yeah.
at a very young age, we've been socialized that we ask for permission. And I think that is much more evident for girls than boys. Girls are expected to sit quietly, which they generally have a better capacity at school age than boys. Girls do have, they mature a little bit faster. They have better like fine motor skills. Boys have better large motor skills. That's why boys typically excel at sports, and girls will be able to sit quietly and color and draw. And my middle son had a teacher in fourth grade who just it's not that she didn't like boys, she didn't like teaching boys, because she wanted the boys to sit still and do everything exactly like the girls could. And, if having had boys, three of them, they have just so much more like of that energy that, and they learn sometimes by moving kinetically. But it was a battle that whole year, because that was kind of like that really pivotal year for him, of kind of starting to make, when they start really wanting them to sit and be still. But so I think societal factors play a lot in it, because women have been conditioned to
Oh,
be.
well, I mean, you hear that from back our generation, especially. I feel like the younger generation is doing it better. But as we were going through high school, if a girl was wild, she was a slut or a hoe, and there wasn't a name for the guy. That was just
Oh, for sure. No, he
like he was just allowed to run wild and do what he wanted, and the girl was slut shamed for it. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
and now that's not a thing anymore. You know, this younger generation, they're like, we don't slut shame.
I know. And it's
It's
kind of like,
such a different time, which I mean, good. It's like, or they'll slut shame both. They'll be like, oh, he's a hoe. You know, it's like now it's he's a hoe, and
right.
um, so it is good, but yeah,
Yeah, I think that that is interesting how the tide has kind of changed. And while I think that's good, that people are able to be more open about what they're doing, they don't get called a slut or a whore. But then the other part of me, I think the good girl part of me is like, but like if they're sleeping around with a bunch of people, it's like that conditioning that I've had,
yeah,
that religious
hmm
upbringing that, is so ingrained in me about how good girls save themselves. Even though, I can rationalize that away, but it's still just that's been drilled into me since I was little.
yeah. I don't have that anymore.
You don't?
No, I'm
Yeah,
like,
like it's just
I
like,
think because I'm raising girls, and so I've had like all of those experiences where like I've had those conversations with them where like what you just said, well, like if you are one, you are one, and they're like, Mom. And so then they both challenge me and come at me with different points of view, and I stay open. And so I feel like they've helped me.
get move past that.
Yes, they've helped me get over a lot of that conditioning. And I think also it starts so whenever my kids were little, in order to help them, because I've always been kind of like I struggle to make decisions. I'm afraid that I'm going to make the wrong decision. And so like to empower my kids, I never told them like what I mean, I'm sure I did occasionally, but I tried to, for the most part, never told them my opinion on their outfits, or if they would come to me and say, do you like this? Or should I wear this? Or does this match? I'd be like, well, how do you feel about it? And so it was just kind of give a way for me to give them their power back. And I'm like, or I'd be like, oh, you're so stylish. Like you put together that, that twirly skirt and that like, they'd be wearing red and pink. And now you can do red and pink, but when we were raised, you couldn't. But I never pointed that out because I wanted them to stand firm in their power.
Well, and that's another great point, is the self-confidence. So having the self-confidence, I think for a lot of women, especially like maybe in business, male dominated businesses where women are in a minority, that they don't have the self-confidence to stand up for themselves. I have a really good friend who is an attorney in a male dominated field. And she says that, and she is has a lot of like very masculine energy in the sense that she has no problem saying what she needs to say. She's not accommodating. And it's funny that we're such good friends because we are like yin and yang to each other. We definitely are complementary to each other. And sometimes I wish I could be more like her and be just like, she doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's funny when we text, I'll send a text. This is a really great example of this is, let's just say if I need to explain something or somebody asks us to do something, I'll give a big long reason. Like,
Yeah.
I can't because blah, 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 blah. I really would love to do it, blah, blah, blah. And she'll be like, yeah, I can't do that. And I'm just like, I wish I could be that way. But she says in business that when she is making decisions, she is called a bitch because she's making decisions. But if a man made the same decision, he would be called decisive or
Or a
powerful.
leader, which is what they often say. Yeah, like the men are leaders, women are bitches.
Yeah. And again, we're not bashing men. I have 3 grown sons. I have a wonderful
Yeah.
husband who has been led by many women in his company. Most of his bosses have been women, and he is so, appreciative of their, leadership. But it is, I think, as a general rule in society, that women are treated as being bitchy or unkind if they're.
And we do it to ourselves. So that's the thing, is like, I'm not male bashing, like women treat other women this way.
Mhm.
We have this expectation. I mean, I think men also do, of course, have this expectation, especially in business. But in general, and women, we carry out a lot of that with each other.
Well, that's who's saying that she's a bitch is other
Oh,
women.
the women?
The men are respectful of it. Like that, it's
Oh,
like,
that's, I think you're saying the men were saying that.
no, 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 no. The women, the other women
Wow.
are
Like
making
she's a
that
bitch.
kind of statement about her, whereas the men respect it. Like, she's decisive, she's a good leader, she knows what she's doing, and the women are the ones that are like, kind of.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. That's real life. Yeah, that's what we deal with. That's crazy.
Well, and that leads me into another point of fear of judgment, because we do, again, going back to being accommodating, we fear being viewed as that way. And so we
Yes.
do a lot of the things that we do out of fear of judgment. We want to be seen as agreeable.
And
And
we want to be liked. And to us, being agreeable and easygoing is likable. Well, I say we flip that script. I mean, I want to like someone because I know their opinions and I know who they really are. And even if I don't agree with one of their opinions, I respect them for being bold enough to say it. And maybe we need to start working on ourselves, on flipping that script in our own head. Like, that's respectable when someone's going to say what they think, or that's, I don't know, and it's not the end of the world for us to say no. It's not the end of, like, how can we move past this to grow ourselves? So one, we know who we are, so others know who we really are. So we stand in our own power and we feel like we know ourselves.
well, I think that the way that this is happening too is, well, we reach a certain age, and I think it naturally starts to happen. It has for me in midlife, where I'm much more comfortable not being liked, because I've been a people pleaser my entire life. I want to be liked. Don't want to be, I don't want to be disagreeable. But again, I think with the drop in estrogen, that's kind of changed for me.
Yeah.
But you're with daughters, you're helping change the next generation, who is not going to have that same onus on them to always be agreeable. And for me, for my boys, I've always just, they've always just been very socialized to be very respectful of women. I mean, Jeff has always just, my kids, if they even remotely were disrespectful to me or anything, I mean, he is just like, so they are super respectful to women, have never had issues with being that male chauvinist kind of pig that, is kind of
Yeah.
stereotype. They're just like the biggest cheerleaders for their partners when they date people. So I think that that's how it's going to change, is because we've grown up that way. Our parents, our mothers were definitely socialized to
Hmm.
be agreeable.
I
And
think that we have to, like, also start with, like, for our daughters and our daughter-in-laws, and that nobody has to prove themselves. I
Mhm.
think that there's something in women that we feel like we have to prove ourselves to be likable. Like, we have to be agreeable, we have to be kind, we have to be like, just like them for them, like, without that. Don't make anyone jump through hoops. Just be like, oh, my son sees something in you, so I'm just going to blindly like you and accept you, and until you give me a reason not to. And then the same, obviously, with my daughters, and we just, we accept them instead of, I feel like for some reason people think that they have can give input on women's lives and how they're living. And I think that so much of that input, whether it be on everything from their weight, how they're dressing, how they're moving, what they're, I think for we shouldn't be giving our opinions on how other people choose to live their lives, especially, like, you shouldn't do that to another woman.
Right. Well, I think that for so many of us, I know for me, I've had a lot of personal growth around that I think, and we've kind of touched on this about like our Enneagram and all of that. And I am a 2, which is a helper. And I think that I'm starting to break some of those patterns of behavior of needing approval, needing to be agreeable, it's like sometimes we have to be agreeable and show, like, prove our worth and be helpful because that proves our worth, rather than just us having worth because of who we are. Our innate true self has the worth. So I don't need all these works to do to prove it, because it's
It's already
already
there. You already have it.
right. But I think that, for whatever reason, we're all individuals. Was it my upbringing? Was it being raised very religious? Was it, whatever it was that made me always, if I would have to be useful to prove my worth. And I'm
Hmm.
starting to get away from that. I still like helping, and I don't think being helpful is a bad thing, but it is when it's at a cost of you. I had a conversation with a friend last week, and one of the things that I said to her was, I said, setting boundaries is not an unkindness. I think, and a lot of times people think that when you set a boundary, it's like a harsh thing. It's actually a kindness that you're doing when you're setting a boundary, because you're letting people know what they can expect.
Yeah. I mean, one is keeping the relationship open, because otherwise, if boundaries are crossed or if you feel like you're being infringed upon or something, then you've got two options. Like, right, you're going to end the relationship because it's just too much. So I think boundaries keep people in our lives rather than push them out. But we do often have a hard time setting them.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think are some of the impacts of permission seeking for?
I think that whenever you seek permission, the main thing is, I think that many of us don't realize that we're doing it as often as we are. But I think that we lose ourselves. It's us shrinking ourselves down to where we don't recognize ourselves. And then we wake up one day in midlife and we're like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't. And that is a piece of it every time you hide who you really are. So I think that the way we start to get that back is by exercising our right to say no as a complete sentence. Um, and you can say it nicely if you just don't want to say no, right? Like but you don't have to give a big speech about it. You can just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available. That sounds lovely though. Maybe another time. Right? You don't have to give a reason. Like or you can, if you need to, but just say no. Don't say yes to everything. And then if you are someone that says no all the time, then maybe you need to say yes. I mean, there's also those people too that can't. But also think of things like, when I was just in Atlanta with Erin, I realized like I dim myself a lot based on my appearance, because I live in a very interesting area in the Northern Virginia. It's like everyone's Washington, D.C. centered, and we're heavy in the government jobs. So we are very liberal in our how we move throughout the world and our personal beliefs, but we are very conservative in how we carry ourselves and how we dress. So it's always black neutrals, grays, nothing, no patterns. It's usually just neutral, clean lines, simple clothes, and it's nothing too flashy. And then when I go to visit Texas or when I was in Atlanta, it's like so colorful, all the boutiques there. Like ours, we have like J. Crew and White House Black Market, and like in Atlanta, there were so many different little small businesses, and there's all kinds of different styles with tons of colors. I was like, oh my gosh, like this would never make it where I live. But that is me. I would be more colorful. I would be really cute and dolled up all the time, but I feel out of place. So it's like I'm kind of
Not giving
shrinking.
yourself permission to be yourself.
Right.
Right.
I'm not giving myself, and I'll tell you, when I had pink hair a couple years ago, um, I was so scared to have pink hair. I did it after my stepdad died, and I was like, oh my God, life is short. I've always wanted pink hair. And I always said when I'm 80, I'm going to have pink hair. And then I was like, why am I waiting till I'm 80? And so I just did it. And it was so fun. I was just thinking, I live in this conservative environment that people aren't going to like it. No one has ever talked to me that much ever with pink hair. People were coming up to me, people were talking to me in checkout lines, and that's not standard for this area. We're not like a socially like friendly group. It's not like the South. So we don't sit here and like talk in lines and stuff.
Right.
Everyone was talking to me with pink hair. They were like, I just seemed very approachable, and it was fun, but it was a lot of maintenance, so I had to
I was
stop.
going to say, colored hair is, I always think it looks so cute on other people, but all I think about is like, oh, having to like, because it
They have
fades.
to like put that pink in once a week, and it is so damaging and drying, which is just too bad because it is so cute.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, well,
But that is me. That is my personality, to be kind of funky, to be kind of,
I know you are. That is what I thought when you were talking about the boutiques in Atlanta. Like, but you are so colorful. Like,
yeah,
your personality is so colorful, so it should reflect what you wear. It should reflect on you. You know how your personality is. You don't need to be in neutrals all the time because that's just not who you are.
yeah. But it's who I've been for the past several years because I was just conforming.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for me, it'll be spicing things up, you know?
I was going to say, life is short. Get the pink hair.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think one of the ways that we can move beyond permission seeking is we can challenge that conditioning that we've had, that recognize our patterns, and then see if we can, when we catch ourselves seeking permission or needing others' approval, that, the first step is, like you said, is for someone who says yes all the time, is to say no. And you can say no with a long explanation. Like, well, no, if you need to validate it, you can say no because blah, 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 blah. Like, so the person doesn't just think you're just saying, no, that doesn't work for me. And then slowly, like, making it then incremental changes. I think for me, for some people, pulling the Band-Aid off right away, is the way to go, right? It's the best way for them. For me, I do better when I make like incremental changes. And it's funny because knowing that we were going to do this topic, I had to reschedule a meeting for my neighborhood. I'm the social co-chair, and I was letting some of the people know who were supposed to be coming to this meeting, like, hey, we're moving the meeting till next week. That's all I said, hope you can make it. But I was trying to channel the non-permission seeking Erin. Yeah. And then one of the ladies was like, well, took off specifically, she kind of, and I just said, I'm sorry, we had to change it. And, normally I would try to
Be
validate,
accommodating.
yeah, like why I had to do it. I'm sorry. I'd apologize. And, I would have wanted to not upset the apple cart, but I was like, you know what?
Yeah, because it's not our job to manage other people's emotions.
Yeah,
And that's what we do. We are like, oh, we're afraid of saying this because we're afraid we're going to hurt their feelings. Or, I mean, obviously, if it's directly at them, but like saying no or having to reschedule shouldn't be that big of a deal that you should have to manage someone else's
right.
emotions or outcome. People should manage their own.
Yes, exactly. And again, like I can know that intellectually, but sometimes I find myself just falling back into my people pleasing, self.
Oh, for sure.
I just, so ingrained. I think that, you know, a good way is developing our self-confidence, our, learning to really get to know yourself. And you and we've talked on last week's episode about the importance of like the retreats and how that time away, and it gives you a time to really reflect on yourself. And so,
And yourself like with other women that also have a growth mindset.
mhm,
Because if you're with the same girls that you've been hanging out with forever, and if you guys are all repeating the same circle of like not growing yourselves or improving your lives, you just get together and shoot the
gossip,
shit.
or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you're not really focused on self growth. You need a different group of friends.
Yeah. So taking some quiet time to really,
Not excluding them, but in addition to that, you also need a different that, which is why retreats and stuff can be good.
right,
Sorry.
because it gives you the time to focus on yourself. So you really get to know yourself and really start to believe in your own personal power and really start to lean into not needing permission.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
It is hard. But it's so much better when you have a group of women or you have at least one friend that is also like minded and that you can have these conversations like, I want to grow. I want to be better with this. I want to do this better. And so even if you're like bouncing off, like I've literally messaged Erin before and been like, how do I say no to this or something, whatever? And sometimes the other person can see something clearer than we can see it. And they're like, it's really not that deep. Like, calm down, just be like this. And you're like, oh, okay. And we just spiral in our heads and it's not that deep.
Right. So seeking advice and not permission.
Yes.
Having a trusted confidant, which goes back to, navigating friendships in midlife. You want to have, someone that you can bounce, you know, your thoughts off of. And maybe it's not your spouse because they're going to solve the problem. You don't need somebody that's going to solve the problem. You just need somebody to listen. Because oftentimes I find that when I say it out loud, then I know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm telling it to you,
Yeah, when I'm sending you a voice message playing it out, I'm like, okay, I know what
yeah.
to do now.
Yeah. It's just though that you have to like sometimes go through it to the thought process, and then you're like, oh, I already knew what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you can also ask yourself too, like, what's the worst that can happen if sometimes if we're aware of the absolute worst outcome and you're like, can I live with that worst outcome? Most of the times you can. And then you're like, okay, I can say my opinions, my thoughts, I can speak up for myself in this situation because the worst outcome that's possible is not that. It's not likely, and two, it's not that terrible.
I was going to say, you're not going to die.
Yeah, it's right. You're not going to die.
Everything else is recoverable.
Yeah. And then also, like, my husband taught me this years ago, was because I used to go to everything I was invited to. And I was like, I had FOMO. I would go because I'd have FOMO.
That's
And
but you are the party loving,
yes.
you're like, oh, it's social. So I can see that.
So, but I was getting overwhelmed. It was just too much. And so he just said, okay, when you see pictures of this on Facebook, are you going to wish you were there? And that helped me go. And then I was like, no, are you sure? Are you going to be okay that you didn't go? I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. I could see pictures of that and be like,
Yeah.
and so now that's what I was asking myself about a trip. Like, or am I going to be like, dang, I should have gone. That would have been a good time.
Yeah, that's actually a good gauge. Like once I see pictures, am I going to really feel like I, should have gone? And then you're like, or is being at home with my family or being at home with myself or getting to bed early. Cause when you were here and we talked a lot about sleep, I don't have FOMO as much, but I do like to, stay busy and do things. But for the past year, I have like been really prioritizing my sleep, and a lot of the things that I was involved in would go from 7 to 9 at night.
Mhm.
And if I'm with a crowd of people, I'm an extroverted introvert.
Same.
So yeah, I love like going and getting around people. But when I get home, I need a lot of downtime to like bring
To
myself.
recover. Yeah.
Jeff and I can go out in a crowd, and, he's definitely not as social as me. But when we get home, he can go right to sleep.
Yeah, Chris too. I think it's because you and I are socializing. They're there just kind of listening and watching, and we'll talk a smidge. But you and I are like, so our energy is really getting out there, and they're conserving energy while they're out.
Yeah. So he's like over there just already like sawing logs and dreaming. And I need like lots of time. I'll either have to take a hot bath or I'll read for a while. And, so that I can actually wind down and go, to go to bed. But so I have started, which there is a little bit of FOMO because there are a lot of things that I like to do, but I've made sleep my priority. So I won't be out that late because my ring tells me at 8 p.m., hey, you need to start preparing for bedtime.
Yeah. So you guys, Erin has the aura ring. So
Yeah.
Erin, talk about that. So that really, it.
So it's made me
I'm
aware.
interested. Yeah, because I would talk about REM sleep real quick. Just give a quick little.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that was, I'm really good about activity, managing my stress, all of that. But my sleep, part of it is from having MS. My MS doctor always tells me, he's an MS specialist. He's like, people with MS don't get as good a sleep. But I'm like, I'm going to get the best sleep I can get with MS. So since I got my Aura ring last July, sleep has been I've been like working to improve my sleep. You get most of your deep sleep before midnight. And I was staying up most nights till like 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm like 11:30. So if most of your REM sleep
No,
comes
most
before
of your deep.
midnight,
You're deep.
your
So
deep
deep
sleep.
sleep is different than REM sleep.
Oh,
Deep
okay.
sleep is when your body repairs. It's when your body is doing like autophagy, so it's cleaning up all the dead cells.
So if I sleep from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m., I'm really not getting deep sleep.
You probably aren't getting the deep sleep that you could be getting if you went to bed earlier. Now, you might, I mean, some people can, obviously, it's very individualized, but just studies have shown that you get the majority of your deep sleep before midnight. It's just with our circadian rhythm, right? The
Yeah.
sun comes up, the sun goes down. By the time the sun goes down, that's when our body starts producing more melatonin, our cortisol levels drop. And so that's why your body's prepared for deep sleep. Deep sleep is repair. So it's a tissue repair. Then you get most of your REM later, more towards the morning time. And your REM sleep is your memory consolidation. There's REM and then there's REM. So in REM, you do dream, but you don't typically remember those dreams. So if you remember a lot of your dreams, you're in light sleep because you can dream in light sleep.
Okay. So I don't ever remember dreams. That means I'm probably
That's good. Then that means that you
okay.
probably aren't in light sleep as much. So the majority of your sleep is in light sleep. You just may not be dreaming and you may not remember them. I remember every dream vividly. I have very vivid dreams because I have a lot of light sleep. But so I have, over the past year, I've really improved my sleep because I've gone to bed earlier. So I'm getting a lot more deep sleep. And I've managed to get my REM. So I would get REM not until like 6 a.m. Now I can get REM as early as 2 a.m. because I'm going to bed earlier. Studies have shown that for women, women account of 66% of all dementia cases. So Alzheimer's, any kind of dementia. And they've done studies that show that delayed onset of REM, they think, I don't know if it's, causation equals correlation, but that delayed onset of REM has a strong correlation to onset of dementia.
Mm,
So it's fascinating information. Don't let it
it
stress
is.
you out. Some people are they say they're night owls. And I'm always like, you've made yourself a night owl, because if we went back to our ancestral days where we didn't have electricity, you would go to bed when the sun went down and you would
Yeah.
wake up when the sun came up. That's how our bodies are designed. You can you can override the hardwiredness in you and make yourself a night owl, but I don't think that people are, generally they're a faux night owl. They've made themselves a night owl.
Yeah. And if you're drinking wine, I've heard that will really disrupt but you don't drink wine, so you haven't seen the evidence of that on your ring, but
No, I don't drink alcohol, but alcohol is absolutely a sleep disruptor. We're gonna have to do
yeah.
a whole episode on sleep and midlife.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of friends that are like, I have to have a glass of wine for me to go to bed at night.
So it does like make you drowsy, but it disrupts your sleep. There's a lot of factors, and we can talk
Yeah.
about
That'll
that
be another episode.
on sleep because it's fascinating. It is. But anyway, so yeah, so I've back to like, missing out. I've definitely cut back on my late night activities to prioritize sleep right now in my life. And I just, maybe that'll change eventually, but right now I'm like, sleep is the most important.
Yeah. I agree.
So I'm giving myself permission to
Yeah.
forego going to things, right? So,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, well, anything else you want to add?
I think that we covered everything. I just want, our listeners to know that I struggle with this all the time and I'm actively working on it. Like, I just think it's really important that we recognize where we aren't doing well in life and we actively work at improving it. And this is something I'm actively working at improving. So if you have any tips, shoot us a message and let us know your thoughts on the subject, because maybe we'll share it on a future episode.
Definitely. Yeah. So, well, thanks guys for listening. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been a production of Estrogen Dropouts, LLC.